After the supervising officer order was picked up, all of the soldier souls in the outer wall camp became restless. On the mustering platform, the headless commandant slowly drew his saber. On the execution platform, the commandant's head also opened its eyes. Between the two, it was as if a military order that had been forcefully severed was reconnecting. But this connection was not meant to soothe the soul. It was a question. Who ordered me to hold to the death? Who cut off my head? Those two sentences echoed constantly through the outer wall. Dragon Court's squad immediately tightened its defensive line. The Shen family team no longer dared approach the military equipment shed. Su Qingli quickly walked to Lin Yao's side. We have to judge whether the supervising officer order was lawful. Lin Yao nodded. He looked toward Gao Mu. In the army, can a supervising officer order the execution of a commandant? Gao Mu's face was very cold. He can supervise military law. But he cannot overstep the Guardian General and alter an order to withdraw and defend. Unless there is a higher military order. Lin Yao looked at the supervising officer order in his hand. This order does not have the Guardian General's seal. Gao Mu said, then it is a private order. Shen Xianzhou walked over and frowned. But in wartime, if the supervising officer believed the commandant was shrinking from battle, did he have authority to make an immediate battlefield decision? Gao Mu glanced at him. He did. So the problem is not only whether it had the Guardian General's seal. Shen Xianzhou analyzed calmly. We also have to prove that the commandant was not afraid to fight, but was carrying out a reasonable withdrawal. That was correct. If the commandant truly had been shrinking from battle, then even if the supervising officer's execution had been cruel, it might still have been in accordance with military law. They had to find the commandant's original order. In other words, the basis on which he had ordered the retreat to the second wall. Lin Yao immediately asked, where is the commandant's soldier roster? Gao Mu pointed toward the mustering platform. There should be an outer wall soldier roster chest beneath the mustering platform. Everyone immediately returned to the mustering platform. The headless commandant had already left his original position. He stood in front of the platform, his long saber hanging low in his hand. If anyone approached, he would likely attack at once. Lin Yao raised the supervising officer order. We are investigating the order. The headless commandant paused. But he still did not retreat. He had no head and could not speak. But the military force around him expressed his meaning very clearly. Investigate. If the investigation is unclear, execute. Gao Mu led Zhao Tai and the others to guard Lin Yao. Lin Yao walked beneath the mustering platform and quickly found a black stone soldier roster chest. There were two seals on the chest. One was the commandant's seal. The other was the saber mark of the supervising officer. Civilization analysis surfaced. Outer Wall soldier roster chest. Status: forcefully sealed by the supervising officer's saber mark. Opening method: return the commandant's head to its place, or temporarily open the chest with a Guardian General token fragment. Lin Yao looked toward the execution platform. The commandant's head was on the execution platform. If he removed it directly, he would trigger the military law soldier souls. But now that they had found a problem with the supervising officer order, perhaps he could retrieve it through judgment. Lin Yao walked to the front of the execution platform. The military law soldier souls blocked him. Guilty head. May not be taken. Lin Yao raised the supervising officer order. The supervising officer order lacks the Guardian General's seal and is suspected to be a private order. Whether the commandant is guilty has not yet been judged. Until guilt is determined, his head should not hang on the execution platform. The eye flames of the military law soldiers' souls flickered violently. That sentence struck the logic of military law. Guilt had not been determined. The head must not be displayed publicly. One of the military law soldiers' souls asked, "Who judges?" Lin Yao answered, "The one holding the Guardian General token fragment, the master of the Obsidian flag, and the holder of the Outer Wall passage token." The military law soldiers' souls did not immediately move aside. Lin Yao added, "If the judgment is wrong, I will bear the backlash of the military order." Cao Mu's expression changed. "Lord!" Lin Yao did not turn back. At last, the military law soldiers' souls lowered their sabers. "The head may be taken. If the commandant is guilty, you share the same guilt." Zhao Tai gritted his teeth and muttered, "These military law soldiers' souls really do not show the slightest mercy." Chen Hao said, "That is military law." After the commandant's head was taken down, the military force around the headless commandant shook violently. But he did not attack. Lin Yao brought the head to the front of the mustering platform. When the head approached the headless body, black-red light formed between the two. But they still did not fully merge. Because his crime had not yet been judged clearly. Lin Yao placed the commandant's head in front of the soldier roster chest. The seal loosened. With Cao Mu assisting through the Guardian General token fragment, the soldier roster chest finally opened. There were 3 things inside. The Outer Wall soldier roster, the Commandant's withdrawal order, and the final battle loss record. Lin Yao looked at the withdrawal order first. Outer Wall Commandant Withdrawal Order. Content: the northern section of the Outer Wall has been breached, the archer unit has suffered more than half casualties, and military equipment is insufficient. In accordance with the Guardian General's prior defensive strategy, withdraw to the second wall and reorganize the defensive line. Seal: Outer Wall Commandant Seal. Note: conforms to Blackstone Stronghold's staged defensive strategy. Then he looked at the battle loss record. Outer Wall battle losses. Northern section defenders, fewer than 3 in 10 remain. Archer unit, nearly annihilated. Military equipment, insufficient arrows. Outer Wall left side has been breached. If they do not withdraw to the second wall, the Outer Wall defenders will be wiped out. The evidence was very clear. The commandant had not been afraid of battle. He had been carrying out a reasonable withdrawal. The supervising officer had overstepped his authority, ordered that no one withdraw, and executed the commandant with a private order. As a result, the Outer Wall defenders lost their commander and were ultimately wiped out. Holding the 3 pieces of evidence, Lin Yao walked onto the mustering platform. The entire Outer Wall camp quieted. All of the soldiers' souls were looking at him. In the direction of the supervising officer's tent, the dried supervising officer corpse suddenly moved. It pulled the short blade from its chest and staggered out. A cold, eerie voice rang out. "Those who retreat shall be executed. The Outer Wall must not retreat. I am not guilty. I upheld military law." Lin Yao looked at it. "What you upheld was not military law. It was a private order." The supervising officer corpse shrieked, "If everyone can retreat, how can the stronghold be defended?" Lin Yao asked in return, "If those who should retreat do not retreat, and all soldiers die at the outer wall, who defends the second wall?" The supervising officer corpse froze. Lin Yao raised the commandant's withdrawal order. The Outer Wall Commandant's withdrawal to the second wall conformed to the staged defensive strategy. He raised the battle loss record. The northern section of the Outer Wall had been breached, the archer unit was almost destroyed, and military equipment was insufficient. Finally, he raised the supervising officer order. The supervising officer order lacked the Guardian General seal, had no higher military order behind it, yet overstepped authority and executed the commandant. It caused the Outer Wall to lose its commander. It caused the defenders to have no orders. It caused the entire line to collapse. This guilt does not lie with the commandant. It lies with the supervising officer. As his voice fell, the mustering platform trembled. The headless commandant finally raised his saber. The military law soldiers' souls on the execution platform turned and looked toward the supervising officer corpse. The outer wall soldiers' souls that had originally been restless also turned in unison toward the supervising officer. The supervising officer corpse screamed, "I am the supervising officer. I inspected the army on behalf of those above. I executed retreaters. What guilt is there in that?" Lin Yao's voice cooled. "Those who inspect the army may not disrupt orders. Those who enforce the law may not overstep authority. In the name of military law, you destroyed the truth of military orders." Guilt determined. A system prompt surfaced. Outer Wall judgment: the supervising officer overstepped authority, executed the commandant, and damaged the withdrawal military order. Execute military law counter-judgment? Lin Yao looked toward Gao Mu. Gao Mu said in a low voice, "Execute." Lin Yao nodded. Execute. The military law soldiers' souls drew their sabers at the same time. The supervising officer corpse tried to flee, but was blocked by the outer wall soldiers' souls. The headless commandant stepped forward, and his long saber fell. The supervising officer corpse's head flew into the air. Ghost green resentment fire burst apart. The black mist on the mustering platform instantly cleared by a great deal. The commandant's head slowly flew up and returned to the headless body. The Outer Wall Commandant was finally complete. He opened his eyes and looked at Lin Yao. This time, the fire in his eyes was no longer chaotic. Order clear. Guilt determined. Outer Wall Commandant, return to post. The system prompt rang out. You have completed the first Outer Wall judgment, whose military order. Outer Wall Commandant Remnant Soul has returned to post. Lost Stronghold Outer Wall order restored, 12%. You have obtained Outer Wall Commandant's recognition. You have obtained Outer Wall Soldier roster copy. You have obtained Guardian General Token Fragment Clue. Everyone let out a breath. But Shen Xianzhou looked at Lin Yao, and his gaze was deeper than before. In this Outer Wall judgment, he understood one thing. Lin Yao's most terrifying aspect truly was not combat power. It was his ability to find the chain of responsibility inside chaotic military orders. Who was guilty? Who bore responsibility? Who was innocent? Who had overstepped? Right now, that ability was an advantage in the game's main quest. But if the system synchronized with reality in the future, then it would be authority over order itself. Su Qingli was also recording quietly. Only, for the first time, there was a trace of solemnity in her eyes. The Outer Wall Commandant walked to the center of the mustering platform and raised a hand, pointing toward the depths of the military stronghold. The Guardian General Token Fragment is not on the Outer Wall platform. It is at the second wall gate. But the second wall gate is sealed. To open the second wall, first restore the outer wall's 3 lacks. Lin Yao asked, which 3 lacks? The Outer Wall Commandant answered, lack of flag. Lack of bows. Lack of grain. Restore the 3 lacks. The second wall gate will open. A system prompt surfaced. Outer Wall Phase Quest opened, restore the outer wall's 3 lacks. 1. Lack of flag, recover the broken flag of the outer wall's northern section. 2. Lack of bows, repair the outer wall archer unit's arrow tower. 3. Lack of grain, reissue military grain to the outer wall defenders. Lin Yao looked at the quest, and his heart sank. Outer Wall exploration was not a short dungeon. It was an entire military stronghold restoration questline. And restoring the 3 lakhs would consume Obsidian Village's resources, manpower, and judgment in every part. Especially the third part. Reissue military grain to the Outer Wall defenders. Obsidian Village had only just gained grain. Now, the Lost Stronghold wanted grain as well. Zhao Tai could not help muttering, "Why is it grain again?" Gao Mu looked toward the second wall. If the army is to move, it first asks for grain. Lin Yao tightened his grip on the Outer Wall passage token. He knew that the true trial of the Lost Stronghold had only just begun. After the Outer Wall Commandant said lack of flag, lack of bows, lack of grain, the soldiers' souls around the mustering platform quieted again. But this quiet was not peace. It was waiting. They were waiting for Obsidian Village to restore the Outer Wall's 3 lakhs. Lack of flag meant the military order had nothing to rely on. Lack of bows meant the defensive line could not be held. Lack of grain meant the defenders had no strength to fight. If these 3 lakhs were not restored, the second wall gate would not open. The Guardian General token fragment could not be obtained. Lin Yao looked at the quest panel. Outer Wall Phase Quest, restore the Outer Wall's 3 lakhs. 1. Lack of flag, recover the broken flag of the Outer Wall's northern section. 2. Lack of bows, repair the Outer Wall archery unit's arrow tower. 3. Lack of grain, reissue military grain to the Outer Wall defenders. Hint, the 3 items may be completed separately, but the completion order will affect the direction in which Outer Wall order is restored. The completion order also had an effect. That meant they could not do this casually. If they restored the flag first, they might stabilize military orders first. If they restored the bows first, they might strengthen the Outer Wall's combat power. If they restored the grain first, they might calm the defenders' resentment. Lin Yao looked toward Gao Mu. Which one do you recommend doing first? Gao Mu barely hesitated. Grain first. Zhao Tai froze. Not the flag first? Gao Mu looked at the silent soldier souls of the Outer Wall. Hungry soldiers cannot guard a flag. Without grain, army morale is unstable. Without army morale, a flag cannot stand. Lin Yao nodded. This was consistent with Obsidian Village's experience. The military grain seller had taught them one thing. Grain was not a minor logistical matter. Grain was the root of whether military orders could take hold. At this moment, Shin Shenzhou spoke. If we restore grain first, whose grain do we use? That sentence made the atmosphere subtle. The food sources within the team mainly came in 3 types. Obsidian Village's own military grain. The Shin family's supplies. Dragon Court Squad's combat rations. The Su family had brought very little, only enough for the 2 of them. If they reissued military grain to the Outer Wall defenders, existing resources would be consumed. And the Outer Wall defenders were ghosts. If grain was given out, real benefits might not be visible immediately. Naturally, the Shin family did not want to provide grain without conditions. Dragon Court would not be completely willing either. Lin Yao did not answer immediately. Instead, he asked the Outer Wall Commandant, how much grain is needed? The Outer Wall Commandant raised his hand. A damaged grain ledger surfaced beside the mustering platform. Outer Wall Defender Grain Deficit Account. Northern Section Archery Unit, lacks 1 day of battle grain. Wall Patrol Soldiers, lack half a day of battle grain. Wounded Soldier Camp, lacks medicinal grain. Minimum total reissue requirement, 60 units of military grain, 10 units of medicinal grain. 60 units of military grain and 10 units of medicinal grain. For Obsidian Village, that was not a small number. But it was not unbearable either. The problem was that this Outer Wall exploration was a multi-party team. If Obsidian Village paid everything, the Shen family and Dragon Court would enjoy the quest progress for free. Shen Shenzhou was clearly waiting to see how Lin Yao would allocate it. Lin Yao looked at everyone. According to the temporary military orders, restoring Outer Wall grain counts as a quest expense. Everyone participating in profit distribution must share the cost. One Shen family player frowned. We have not discussed profit distribution yet. Lin Yao looked at him. Before entering the Outer Wall, it was already stated. Outer Wall profits will be settled separately according to contribution and contract. But quest expenses will first be divided according to team numbers and duties. That player still wanted to speak. Shen Shenzhou raised a hand to stop him. How will it be divided? Lin Yao said, Obsidian Village will bear 30%. The Shen family will bear 30%. Dragon Court will bear 20%. The Su family will bear 10%. The remaining 10% will be deducted from public loot acquired on site. Su Qingli glanced at Lin Yao. The Su family has few people, but our intelligence duty is special, so we also bear 10%? Lin Yao answered, you will obtain intelligence benefits from Outer Wall writing and military order identification. Su Qingli nodded. Reasonable. Chui also said, Dragon Court accepts. Shen Shenzhou calculated briefly and said, the Shen family accepts. This time, he did not argue. Because although this allocation still preserved Obsidian Village's leadership, it did not shove all costs onto the external forces, nor did Obsidian Village bear everything alone. It fit the logic of public accounts and military orders. Elder Zhou was not present, so Lin Yao recorded the account himself on the spot. Outer Wall Grain Restoration Temporary Account. Total requirement, military grain 60, medicinal grain 10. Obsidian Village, military grain 18, medicinal grain 3. Shen family, military grain 18, medicinal grain 3. Dragon Court, military grain 12, medicinal grain 2. Su family, military grain 6, medicinal grain 1. Public loot deduction, military grain 6, medicinal grain 1. Bai Shi watched Lin Yao record accounts on the spot and could not help whispering to Chen Hao, he even keeps accounts inside a dungeon? Chen Hao whispered back, are you still not used to it? This is Obsidian Village's core combat power. For a moment, Bai Shi did not know whether she should laugh. But very quickly, she realized this was not a joke. After Lin Yao clearly listed the shared account, the dissatisfaction that might have appeared within the team was suppressed in advance. Each side knew why it was paying, how much it was paying, and that no one had been taken advantage of. This was the stability brought by institutions. The grain restoration began. The Outer Wall Commandant led everyone to the Outer Wall Wounded Soldiers Camp. It was not a camp for living people, but a cluster of low barracks shrouded in black mist. Inside the barracks lay many soldier soul shadows. Some were missing hands. Some had holes in their chests. Some still had arrows stuck in their bodies. They did not wail. They simply lay there in silence. As though they had already been waiting here for many years. Guan had not entered the outer wall, so medicinal grain could only be distributed with Bai Ji and the Su family recorder's assistance. This was Bai Ji's first time coming into close contact with wounded soldier souls, and her face was pale. She held the medicinal grain, her fingers trembling. One wounded soldier soul raised its head and looked at her. Medical soldier? Bai Ji froze. She was not a medical soldier. She was only a player. But in this moment, if she answered no, the medicinal grain distribution might fail. Lin Yao spoke from the side. Temporary medical assistant. The wounded soldier soul looked toward the temporary military order light of the obsidian flag in Lin Yao's hand. After a moment, it lowered its head. Approved. Bai Ji took a deep breath and placed the medicinal grain onto the stone platform in the wounded soldier's camp. The medicinal grain turned into faint green light and flowed into those wounded soldiers' souls. The resentment on their bodies faded a little. Next came the Northern Section Archer Unit. Inside the Archer Unit barracks, broken bows hung all over the walls. Many archer soldier souls sat on the ground, still holding snapped bowstrings in their hands. When they saw the military grain, they did not reach out in a hurry. Instead, they looked toward the Outer Wall Commandant. The Commandant nodded. Reissue. Only then did the archer soldier souls receive the grain. This scene made Shinshenzhou narrow his eyes slightly. These ghosts were not simply driven by resentment. They still followed military order. As long as the order was clear, the accounts were plain, and the grain arrived, they could be organized again. That meant the value of the Lost Stronghold Outer Wall was extremely high. If someone could truly master this military soul order, they might obtain an extremely terrifying war soul army in the future. But Shinshenzhou also knew the Shin family would find it very hard to master directly. Because they did not have the Obsidian flag. They did not have the public ledger granary. And they did not have someone like Lin Yao, who could deal with knots of responsibility and military orders. Last were the wall patrol soldiers. When the patrol soldiers' souls received grain, one soldier's soul suddenly asked, "Where does the grain come from?" Lin Yao answered, "It is jointly reissued by Obsidian Village and the temporary team." "Can the account be inspected?" Lin Yao displayed the temporary account. After the patrol soldier's soul looked through it, it lowered its head and received the grain. This detail made everyone fall silent. Even soldiers' souls asked for accounts. The Outer Wall had already connected Obsidian Village's public account concept into its military order system. After the grain restoration was complete, the system prompt rang out. One of the Outer Wall's 3 lack of grain, restored. Outer Wall military morale stability increased. Outer Wall order restored, 12%-19%. Obsidian Village's public account concept has received partial Outer Wall recognition. Outer Wall defenders' favor toward the Obsidian flag has increased. Zhao Tai muttered, "Just issuing grain raises it this much?" Diamu said, "Hungry soldiers can guard a wall because they still remember the order. But if they remain hungry forever, the order will sooner or later become resentment." Lin Yao looked toward the northern section of the Outer Wall. Next came lack of bows and lack of flag. At this moment, the Outer Wall Commandant spoke. "Grain has been restored. Bows may be repaired. Flag may be found." Lin Yao asked, "Which one first?" The Commandant answered, "The bows are in the open. The flag is in the dark." Diao Mu explained, "Repair the archer unit's arrow tower first. With archer support, searching for the northern section's broken flag will be safer." Lin Yao agreed. The team began moving toward the northern section arrow tower. The Outer Wall's true battle line gradually unfolded before everyone's eyes. The northern section arrow tower was one of the most shattered areas of the Outer Wall. Before they even approached, everyone could see the half-collapsed tower leaning against the wall. Wooden beams had broken. The stone foundation had cracked. Arrow slits had been torn open by black claw marks. The ground was covered with broken arrows, ruined bows, and shattered armor. The traces of battle here were even more brutal than those on the mustering platform. There was still a charred smell in the air. It was not the smell of burned wood. It was more like the scent left behind after flesh and soul fire had burned together. The Outer Wall Commandant stopped in front of the arrow tower. The northern section archer unit held until the very end. Arrows exhausted. Bows broken. Tower collapsed. Did not retreat. Gao Mu saluted the arrow tower. Zhao Tai, Li Feng, Wang Shan, and Lu Shi followed him in salute. Dragon Court's squad understood battlefield rules better and did the same. The Shen family was half a beat slower, but after seeing Shen Qianzhou salute, they followed as well. Su Qingli recorded in a low voice. Northern Section Archer Unit, arrows exhausted yet did not retreat. The Arrow Tower quest surfaced. 2 of the Outer Wall's 3 lack of bows. Quest objective, repair the minimum operational ability of the Northern Section Arrow Tower. Requirements: 1. Clear the Arrow Tower resentment fire. 2. Repair 3 load-bearing beams. 3. Replenish bowstrings and arrows. 4. Settle the Archer Unit remnant souls. Hint: if old bow bones are violently removed during repair, the Archer Unit's resentment will be triggered. After Lin Yao finished reading, he immediately understood this was not a simple construction task. The Arrow Tower itself carried the Archer Unit's remnant souls. When repairing it, they could not tear out the old and replace it with the new like ordinary construction. They had to preserve the traces of how the archers had held to the final moment. Lu Chang was not here, so their construction ability was insufficient. But the Shen family had brought 2 blacksmiths and several NPC guards who understood construction. This was exactly where they could show their value. Lin Yao looked toward Shen Qianzhou. The Shen family will handle the load-bearing beams and bowstring materials. Shen Qianzhou nodded. We can. He did not take the chance to bargain. Because the temporary military orders had already stated that quest expenses would be recorded in the accounts and settled later. The Shen family's 2 craftsmen stepped forward to inspect the Arrow Tower. One of them frowned. This tower cannot be repaired roughly. If we directly dismantle and rebuild it, that would be fastest. The Outer Wall Commandant's eye flames instantly turned cold. The craftsman's face went pale, and he immediately shut his mouth. Lin Yao said, "It cannot be dismantled." The craftsman nodded. Then we can only reinforce the beams. Of the 3 load-bearing beams, 2 can be reinforced with new wood. The final one is caught against the old bow rack. It cannot be moved. Gao Mu stepped forward and looked. That is the Archer Unit's main firing position. At the highest part of the Arrow Tower, there was a broken bow rack. Beside the bow rack sat an Archer remnant soul. It held a broken bow in its arms. Its head had been lowered the entire time. Unlike the other archers, its remnant soul was clearer. It was likely the squad leader of the Northern Section Archer Unit. Lin Yao approached. The Archer remnant soul did not raise its head. Arrows exhausted. Bow broken. Tower did not fall. It kept repeating these 3 sentences. Bai Ji listened, feeling a little pained. Does it not know the battle is already over? Gao Mu said, it knows. But it only remembers that at the last moment, it never received the replacement arrows. Lin Yao inspected it. Northern Section Archer Unit Leader Remnant Soul. Status: Obsession to guard the tower. Core resentment not, arrows exhausted without reinforcement, bow broken without retreat, yet no merit was recorded. Settlement method: replenish arrows, repair bows, record name. Names again. Lin Yao was becoming more and more certain that with names was an extremely crucial concept in the Blackstone Wasteland main quest. Many military souls were not afraid to die. They were afraid that their deaths had no meaning and that no one remembered them. Lin Yao asked the Outer Wall Commandant, "Where is the Northern Section Archer Unit roster?" The Commandant answered, "Beneath the Arrow Tower." Shi Shang immediately led people to search. Very quickly, he found half a roll of the Archer Unit roster in a scorched wooden chest beneath the Arrow Tower. The roster was damaged, but some names could still be identified. Northern Section Archer Unit roster. Unit Leader, Han Gong. Archers, Lusan, Jiayu, Feng Ma Jing. Status, not archived. Lin Yao handed the roster to Gao Mu. Gao Mu walked in front of the Archer Unit Leader's remnant soul. Northern Section Archer Unit, Unit Leader Han Gong. The remnant soul finally raised its head. Who calls the roll? Gao Mu answered, Obsidian Village Defense Instructor, Gao Mu. By temporary military order of the Obsidian Flag, we restore the Outer Wall's lack of bows. Han Gong's remnant soul looked toward the temporary order light of the Obsidian Flag not far away. The Outer Wall still stands? It stands. The Arrow Tower still guards? After it is repaired, it will continue to guard. Han Gong was silent for a long time. Where are the arrows? Lin Yao looked toward Shinshenzhou. Shinshenzhou immediately ordered people to take out a batch of arrows. These arrows were military equipment supplies the Shin family had brought. Their quality was not especially high, but the quantity was sufficient. Lin Yao also had Dragon Court's archer take out several bundles of better arrows. Shu He did not hesitate. Record it in the account. Lin Yao nodded. It will be recorded. When the arrows were placed beside the bow rack, Han Gong's remnant soul reached out and touched them. Faint soul light surfaced over the arrows. Arrows have arrived. Where is the bow? This time, a Shin family craftsman stepped forward. The bow rack can be repaired. But this broken bow. He looked toward the broken bow in Han Gong's arms. It can no longer be used. The eye flames of Han Gong's remnant soul went cold. The surrounding archer soldiers' souls also became restless. The craftsman's face changed. What he said was true. But in this place, speaking the truth in the wrong way could also trigger resentment. Lin Yao stepped forward. The old bow will not be dismantled. A new bow will take its position. The old bow will be entered by name. Han Gong's remnant soul looked at him. The old bow will be entered by name? Lin Yao said, it accompanied you until the arrows were exhausted and the bow broke. It is not useless waste. Hang it beside the main firing position as the old bow that guarded the tower. The new bow will be responsible for fighting again. Han Gong's remnant soul was silent. After a moment, it slowly set down the broken bow in its arms. Acceptable. The Shin family craftsman let out a breath of relief. The repair formally began. The Shin family craftsmen were responsible for reinforcing the beams. Dragon Court players were responsible for clearing the nearby low-level resentful souls. Obsidian Village's new assault recruits held the Arrow Tower entrance. The Su family was responsible for identifying old military patterns to avoid repairing the wrong sections. Bai Shi handled usable bowstrings and medicinal grass ropes. Chun Hao carried materials up and down. As he carried them, he muttered, I am a frontier soldier, and now I have become a porter. Zhao Tai passed by and said, being able to carry things is also soldiering. Chen Hao wanted to argue, but in the end discovered that this was somehow correct. Clearing the resentment fire was the most dangerous step. On the third floor of the Arrow Tower, a mass of black-red resentment fire had been burning a broken arrow tube the entire time. That was the resentment left behind when the archer unit ran out of arrows. If it was not cleared, the Arrow Tower would not be usable even after repair. But resentment fire could not be extinguished with ordinary water. Gao Mu said, use the replacement arrows. Lin Yao understood. They were not putting out fire. They were letting the resentment fire know that the arrows had already been replenished. He placed bundles of new arrows beside the arrow tube. At the same time, he took out the Northern Section Archer Unit roster. Northern Section Archer Unit. Arrows have been replenished. Names have been recorded. the tower will be repaired. The resentment fire gradually shrank. But it did not fully go out. Han Gong's remnant soul stepped forward and picked up a new arrow. It placed the arrow onto the broken bow. The bow was clearly broken, yet a soul string was still drawn out. Whoosh! The soul arrow shot beyond the outer wall. The resentment fire completely withdrew, turning into a single spark that fell into the arrow tower's main firing position. Resentment fire has transformed into tower guarding soul fire. Northern section arrow tower repair stability increased. Everyone's spirits lifted. The repairs that followed went much more smoothly. The 3 load-bearing beams were reinforced one by one. Bowstrings and arrows were stored. The broken bow was hung beside the main firing position. The northern section archer unit roster was placed into the military record slot on the first floor of the arrow tower. When the final bundle of arrows was placed, the entire arrow tower trembled faintly. The collapsed half did not fully recover, but its minimum operational ability had already been restored. One archer remnant soul after another returned to the arrow slits. Han Gong stood at the highest point and looked toward Lin Yao. Northern section archer unit. Returned to tower. A system prompt surfaced. 2 of the outer wall's 3 lack of bows, restored. Northern section arrow tower has recovered minimum operational ability. Outer wall ranged defense has partially recovered function. Outer wall order restored, 19%-27%. Obsidian Village has obtained northern section archer unit recognition. Temporary team has obtained archer unit support permission, 1 use. When Xin Xianzhou saw the final line, his eyes lit up. Archer unit support permission. That meant if they encountered battle next, they could call on the arrow tower for support once. This was a tangible combat benefit. Shui also let out a breath of relief. Repairing the archer unit first was right. Gao Mu nodded. When we search for the flag next, we will need it. Lin Yao looked toward the deeper part of the outer wall's northern section. The lack of grain had been restored. The lack of bows had been restored. Only the lack of flag remained. But everyone knew that flags were usually the most troublesome. Because a flag was not a material supply. A flag was the core of military orders. The Outer Wall Commandant walked beneath the arrow tower and pointed toward a patch of black mist outside the northern section wall. Northern section broken flag. Fell outside the wall. Dragged into the broken bone trench by enemy resentment. Zhao Tai frowned. What kind of cursed place is broken bone trench? Cao Mu's expression was heavy. The corpse trench beneath the outer wall. Back then, the bones of both enemy and ally were piled there. Bai Zhi's face went pale. Chen Hao said in a low voice, just from the name, it does not sound like a good place. Lin Yao put away the archer unit roster. Rest for 1 quarter. Then we go to Broken Bone Trench. The road toward the lack of flag officially opened. Broken Bone Trench was located beyond the outer wall's northern section. After leaving through the side door of the arrow tower, everyone descended along a narrow stone stairway. The farther down they went, the colder and damper the air became. Black mist flowed along the ground. Underfoot was no longer an orderly stone road, but muddy ground mixed with gravel, broken bones, and rotten weapons. Bai Zhi's expression was very bad. Although she had already seen the military grain cellar and broken flag slope, Broken Bone Trench felt completely different. The military grain cellar was the resentment of those who had starved to death. Broken Flag Slope was the remnant wool of military orders. Broken Bone Trench was the pure accumulation of battlefield death. Here, it did not ask about accounts. It did not ask about orders. There were only countless dead bodies thrown beneath the city wall, finally mixed into a corpse trench where no identity could be distinguished. The Outer Wall Commandant did not come down with them. He remained above the arrow tower. Only the soul fire of Han Gong's archer unit lit up high above, indicating that the archer support permission still existed. Gao Mu walked at the front and warned everyone. Do not step on complete skulls. Do not pick up complete weapons. Do not curse. Zhao Tai could not help asking, we cannot curse here either? Gao Mu said coldly, who are you cursing? Zhao Tai froze. Gao Mu looked at the ground. There are enemies here, and there are our own people here. There are soldiers, and there are civilian laborers. There are those who wanted to kill us, and there are dead souls pressed beneath who cannot rest. Zhao Tai fell silent. He looked at the broken bones beneath his feet, whose origins could no longer be distinguished, and for the first time did not try to talk tough. Lin Yao opened Civilization Analysis. Broken Bone Trench. Type, Outer Wall Battlefield Remnant Zone. Status, Enemy and Allied Resentment Mixed. Risks, Identity Confusion, Resentment Attachment, Bone-Tide Riot. Target Clue, Northern Section Broken Flag. Hint, the broken flag has been dragged deep into the corpse trench. If forcibly removed, enemy resentment and defender resentment will counterattack together. Forcible removal would not work. This was like broken flag slope at the beginning. A flag could not be pulled recklessly. Even if this time they were recovering their own broken flag, they still first had to confirm flag affiliation and resentment. The team advanced along the trench. The Shin family players were clearly much more obedient this time. After experiencing the roll call, the Supervising Officer order, and the Arrow Tower resentment fire, they already knew that things inside the outer wall could not be touched randomly according to ordinary dungeon logic. Dragon Court's squad guarded both sides. Su Qingli continuously recorded the fragments of military markings on the ground. Bai Ji gathered small amounts of black bone moss. Each time she gathered a plant, she first asked Lin Yao. Only after Lin Yao confirmed through civilization analysis that there was no risk did he allow her to take it. This caution was slow, but it kept them alive. When they reached the middle section of Broken Bone Trench, Shishang suddenly stopped. There is movement ahead. From within the black mist came the sound of bones rubbing together. Click. Click, click. The broken bones on the ground began to tremble. A monster pieced together from countless bone fragments slowly crawled up. It had no fixed shape. Its upper body resembled a human, while its lower body dragged a heap of broken bones. Different faction weapons were stuck all over its body. Mixed bone resentful soldier. Source, enemy and allied bones mixed with resentment. Trait, difficult to suppress with a single military order, attacks indiscriminately. Weaknesses, soulfire, archer unit support, resentment clearing talisman water. After the first mixed bone resentful soldier appeared, several more crawled up around it. There were 7 in total. Gao Mu immediately ordered, do not let them approach the flag order. Although Lin Yao had not brought the true obsidian flag into the outer wall, he carried the temporary order light of the obsidian flag. If it was contaminated by mixed bone resentment, it might affect the military order's stability of the entire team. Zhao Tai led the new assault recruits to hold the front. Dragon Court's shield fighters filled the gaps. The Shin family guards used long spears to suppress them from the side. The mixed bone resentful soldiers had no tactics, but their strength was great, and they did not fear pain. Cut off one arm, and it would absorb new bone fragments from the ground and grow it back. Chen Hao shattered the head of one with a slash, only for a bone mouth to split open on its chest. How do we kill this thing? Bai Shi shouted, they have resentment cores on their bodies. Lin Yao saw them too. Civilization analysis marked several black-red resentment cores. Hit the resentment cores.
Zhao Tai, left chest. Shu He, second one, abdomen.
Shin Family Spear Team, suppress the leg bone core on the right.
Each team began cooperating.
Although they came from different factions, under the temporary military orders of the Obsidian Flag, Lin Yao's commands could be strengthened and transmitted by the system. Everyone was not necessarily convinced in their hearts, but they could understand clearly. This was the benefit of military order restraint. After the battle continued for some time, more and more mixed-bone resentful soldiers gathered.
Gao Mu looked toward the arrow tower.
Use archer unit support.
Lin Yao nodded.
He raised the outer wall passage token and shouted, Northern Section Archer Unit, support Broken Bone Trench. In the direction of the distant arrow tower, soul fire lit up. The next second, a rain of black-red soul arrows tore through the mist from above.
The arrows accurately fell into the group of mixed-bone resentful soldiers. Every arrow pinned near a resentment core. Han Gong's voice came from the distance. Arrows have arrived. The mixed-bone resentful soldiers were suppressed by the arrow rain.
Zhao Tai and the others seized the chance to destroy them one by one.
After the final mixed-bone resentful soldier fell, the ground became quiet again. But everyone's stamina had been heavily consumed.
Lin Yao looked toward the arrow tower. The archer support permission had been used. When they searched for the flag next, there would be no second arrow rain.
Shen Xianzhou walked to Lin Yao's side.
If we had not had archer support just now, casualties would have been heavy.
Lin Yao nodded.
That is why repairing the bows first was correct.
Shen Xianzhou looked at him. Your judgment of order is very accurate.
Lin Yao did not answer the praise.
Because he knew what came next would be harder.
They walked forward for another quarter of an hour, and at last, part of a flagpole appeared in the black mist.
The flagpole was slanted into a pile of bones.
Most of the flag cloth was buried under broken bones, with only one corner exposed.
The flag pattern of the Blackstone outer wall could vaguely be seen on it. But a large amount of black resentment was wrapped around the flag. That resentment did not belong to the defenders. It felt more like enemy resentment. Northern Section Broken Flag. Status: entangled by enemy resentment, restrained by defender obsession. Risk: if the flag is pulled directly, Broken Bone Trench Bone Tide will be triggered.
Settlement method: first separate enemy and allied resentment, then have the Northern Section Archer Unit or Outer Wall Commandant confirm flag affiliation.
Separate enemy and allied resentment.
That was exactly the most troublesome part of Broken Bone Trench.
Here, bones were mixed, and resentment was mixed. If they could not distinguish them, the flag could not be raised. Su Qingli stepped forward to observe. These enemy resentments do not look like ordinary dead souls.
They are more like some kind of foreign race or mutated army.
Gao Mu nodded. The Black Tide. Lin Yao looked at him. What exactly is the Black Tide? Gao Mu was silent. I only remember that they were not normal people. Some looked like soldiers. Some looked like beasts. Some looked like things that crawled out of the cracks in the soldier's tomb. Everyone's heart sank.
If the Black Tide was connected to the soldier's tomb, then what was sealed inside the soldier's tomb might be even more dangerous than they had imagined.
Lin Yao pulled his attention back to the broken flag. How do we distinguish enemy from ally?
Gao Mu said, use the roster. Lin Yao immediately thought of the Northern Section Archer Unit roster.
But there were not only archers here. There might also be Outer Wall defenders.
The Outer Wall soldier roster copy given by the Commandant might be useful.
He took out the Outer Wall soldier roster copy.
When the roster approached the broken flag, one name after another surfaced across the flag cloth.
Han Gong, Lu San, Zhao Yu, Feng Ke, Ma Jing, and many more names of Northern Section defenders.
As these names appeared, part of the black mist around the flag turned pale red and slowly withdrew into the flag. But a large amount of black resentment still remained wrapped around the outside.
That was enemy resentment. Lin Yao asked, "How do we handle enemy resentment?"
Gao Mu answered, "Cut it down." This time, there was no judgment.
Because enemy resentment had not come to ask about orders or accounts. It was the enemy will dragging the flag down.
Zhao Tai gripped his saber.
This, I understand. But just as he was preparing to step forward, Shin Shenzhou suddenly spoke. The Shin family can act. Lin Yao looked at him. Shin Shenzhou said, "We brought fire oil and resentment-breaking arrows." Su Qingli frowned.
Fire oil may damage the flag.
Shin Shenzhou nodded. So we will not use it on the flag. Use it on the outer bone piles to force the enemy resentment away from the flag.
This plan was feasible, but it carried risk.
Lin Yao looked toward civilization analysis. Plan, use fire oil to force enemy resentment away. Success rate, medium-high.
Risk, if the fire goes out of control, it may burn part of the flag cloth and trigger defender resentment.
Lin Yao said, "We can use it.
But have the amount of fire oil."
Obsidian Village will confirm the placement. Shin Shenzhou agreed.
The Shin family players began arranging the fire oil.
Bai Ji and Shi Shang marked the wind direction. Su Qingli used talisman paper to press down the area close to the flag cloth. Lin Yao used the Outer Wall soldier roster to stabilize the defender resentment.
After the fire oil was lit, black fire lines burned along the outer edge of the bone piles.
The enemy resentment was stimulated and began peeling away from the broken flag.
Several twisted figures surfaced within the black mist.
They did not look human.
Their limbs were too long, their backs were hunched, and broken weapons dragged from their hands.
Black-Tide Remnant Resentment. Status, enemy resentment dragging the flag.
Objective, prevent the northern section broken flag from returning.
Battle erupted again. This time, the enemy resentments were extremely fast.
They did not clash head-on with the new assault recruits, but circled toward the roster in Lin Yao's hand.
Clearly, they knew the roster could stabilize the flag.
Shu He shouted, "Stop them!" Dragon Court's squad reacted quickly, and the shield fighters immediately shifted sideways. The Shin family guards also thrust their spears to seal the path.
Zhao Tai directly slammed into one Black-Tide Remnant resentment and forced it into the fire line. The Black-Tide Remnant resentment let out a sharp scream.
Gao Mu seized the chance and cut down its resentment core with one slash. The battle was short, but extremely dangerous.
One Shin family guard was scratched by a Black-Tide Remnant resentment, and the wound immediately turned black.
Bai Ji used clear resentment grass powder to suppress the toxicity and temporarily saved him. That made Shin Shenzhou glance at her.
Unaffiliated players had value too. Not everyone useful belonged to a major force. After the final Black-Tide Remnant resentment was cut apart, the black resentment around the broken flag finally receded.
The northern section broken flag revealed its full appearance. It was badly damaged, with only 1/3 of the flag cloth remaining. But the flag pattern was still there. Lin Yao did not pull it out himself.
He looked toward Gao Mu. Gao Mu stepped forward and placed a hand against his chest. Northern Section Guard flag, enemy resentment has been removed. Please return to the tower.
The broken flag trembled slightly.
Han Gong's soul fire lit up from the distant arrow tower.
The Outer Wall Commandant's military order also sent a response. The broken flag rose from the bone pile on its own and fell into Lin Yao's hand.
You have recovered, Northern Section broken flag. 3 of the Outer Wall's 3 lacks, lack of flag, awaiting return.
Lin Yao held the broken flag and felt it was as heavy as a stretch of battlefield.
The lack of flag had finally been found. But there was still one final step: returning the flag.